So we're going to work the homework problem from Connect that's in your book. So you'll have a version of this. It's exercise 5.5 in your book on page 220. And it would be, I guess, the third homework problem that you're going to be working after you do the 2 from chapter 1. So anyway, we've got some data for Herman Corporation, all right, and so they tell us their price per unit, their variable expenses per unit, and the contribution margin. So we can certainly use that to do our calculations as long as we know fixed expenses and how many we sell. So fixed expenses are 30,000, and the company sells 2,000 units per month. So great. So we can use these calculations to make some decisions about this Herman company and see how things can change. So let's see what's required. The first thing is, how much will net operating income increase or decrease if the monthly advertising budget increases by 5,000? So advertising budget fixed, right? So that will go from 30 to 35,000. The monthly sale volume increases by 100 units, right? So we'll sell 100 more, and the total monthly sales increase by 9,000. Well, right, 100 times 90 is 9,000. So we're going to go from 2,000 units per month to, it looks like, 2,100, right? So what does that change look like? All right. So as you know, we can do it a couple different ways. So I'm going to do it all the different ways, right? So we talked in the lecture about how you could kind of draw up your charts and just look at the difference. That's a lengthy way to do it, but we'll do it, and it'll just kind of help us check when we do use our contribution margins. All right, so we're going to compare our current sales of 2,000 to our new sales of 2,100, right? And then we'll just calculate the difference. That's pretty easy. So they tell us our sales are 2,000 per month at 90, so that's 2 times 9 is 18, so that's 180,000 per month, right? 180,000 per month. And over here, if we sell 90 more, if we sell 100 more times 90, that's an additional 9,000. So our new, if we advertise a little more, we're going to sell additional 9,000. So certainly the difference there is 9,000. What's our variable expenses? Well, the variable expenses are $63 for each unit we sell. So if we sell 2,000, that's going to be $126,000 for my variable expenses total. And if I sell 2,100, 2,100 times 63 is 132,300, right? So my difference is 6,300, right? Of course, 6,300 times $63 times 100 is 6,300. So now the contribution margin, right? So I'm going to subtract 180 minus 126. It gives me a contribution margin of 54,000. 189 minus 132.3 gives me a contribution margin of 56,700. So the difference between these two, or the difference between 9,000 minus 6,300, or 54,000 minus 56,700, whichever way you want to go, it's the same, right, is 2,700. All right. Our fixed expenses are the same. Well, they're not the same. We increase them by 5,000, so there's 30,000 here, right? So when you subtract that, you get 24,000 net operating income. That's a 4, and that's a 2. 24,000 net operating income. Over here, if you add the 5,000 in advertising, now you've got 35,000. So now you're going to be making 21,700, right? So that's less, right? So, right? The difference is 5,000 more, right? So either 24,000 minus 21,700, or 2,700 minus 5,000 is going to give you a negative 2,300. So we're making 2,300 less if we spend the additional 5,000. So clearly we're not going to want to do that. I wonder if there's an easier way to do this using these contribution margins, right? Like, I know my contribution margin is $27. If I divide that by 90, that's 30%. Right? So, hey, maybe I can use that, right? So I want to know, still, same question, right? How much will net operating income increase or decrease? In this case, it turned out to decrease if the monthly advertising increases 5,000 and sales volume increases by 100. All right, so I know the contribution margin, right? So I can say, okay, well, if I sell $189,000 with a contribution margin of 30%, right, I'm going to get a contribution margin of 56,700, right? Just like we calculated up here, right? If I just take 189 times 0.3, 56.7, right? Same idea. And then the same thing with my present total contribution, right? So I've got the 180,000 times 30%, and that's going to give me 54,000, right? So the incremental contribution margin, the difference is the 2,700, right? And so I subtract my new incremental advertising, right? And then I end up with my 2,300 going down, decreasing. So same idea. Just kind of just took the contribution margins and applied them and just came up with my answer. Or I could just use my incremental contribution margin, right? So if I know that my difference in sales is 9,000, right? I can take my 9,000, right, times 0.30, right? So 9,000, my incremental minus, times 0.30, right? And I end up with my 2,700, right? 9 times 3 is 27, yep. So now I've got my 2,700, right? Take 9,000 times 0.3, get my 27, so I'm just looking at the differences. And take out my 5,000, of course. And that ends up being 2,300, right? So the answer to the question, no matter how you calculate it, is $2,300. I think it's just a little easier since we already knew the 9,000 and we already knew the 30%, to just take 9,000 times 30%, come up with the 2,700, subtract the difference, and come up with my difference that way. All right. So that's part 1 of exercise 5.5. It does have a second one it wants us to look at. So let's think about this. Refer to the original data. How much, so here's my original data, right? How much will net operating income increase or decrease per month if the company uses higher quality components that increase the variable expense by 2 per unit and sales by 10%? So we're going to sell 200 more, right? And our variable expenses are now going to be $65, right? So the contribution margin is going to decrease, right? So my contribution margin, that's now $27, right? Instead of being 63, this is going to be 65, right? So 90 minus 65 is actually equal to 25 now, right? So my contribution margin now is equal to $25, right? So what can I do? Well, 10% is going to give me a degree of operating leverage of 1.1, right? So I'm going to take my expected contribution margin, right? So in the future, right, if I change my contribution margin to 25, right, my expenses are going to change to 65, so my contribution margin changes to 25, right? So I can take my 2,000 units times 1.1 times 25, and that's equal to 55,000. The present is 2,000. So this is just adding 10%, right? I think I did that while we were talking on the, if you watched the lecture video, right? I told you, well, instead of taking 10%, so I could have done, so what I could have done was this, 2,000 times 10% is equal to 200, and then gone 2,000 plus 200 equals 2,200. Or I could just go 2,000 times 1.1, so I get my whole 2,000 plus my 10% is equal to 2,200. Same idea, right? Same idea. So 2,000 units increased by 10% times $25 per unit, right, is equal to 55,000, right? So that's my contribution margin. My old contribution margin, or whatever, present, is 2,000 times 27, and we already know that's 54,000, right? That, in other words, that's not changing, right? So the difference between those is 1,000, and that's a positive difference. So by increasing the sales to 2,200 and changing my contribution margin to $25 per unit, I'm going to make a little bit more. So that's the two of those. No big deal. I'm sure you can do just fine when you go to Connect.